الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. What is it? Depression, agony, unhappiness, poverty, and losses. You will never be content. And the truth is, it's because we're searching for happiness in the wrong places. We're searching for happiness in a place that is meant to break us. And society has developed a social construct that implies that wealth will give you the happiness that you desire. And sometimes so-called intellectual millennials would maybe challenge that ideology by countering with a statement saying that love will give you the happiness that you need. And while they aren't fully correct, and while they aren't fully wrong, love for this world will not gain you anything. And loving anything, if it isn't for the sake of Allah, will only lead to more losses. Right? Because dunya isn't meant to make you happy. It is only serving as a temporary guest house. And Allah promises happiness for those who are close to Him in dunya. And we are searching for happiness in a place that is also meant to break us, mentally and emotionally. These 9-to-5 jobs that give us false hope of financial freedom, even after years of working, are only meant to break us. Before finding happiness with anything else, you must be content with yourself. You must be content with who you are. You must be content with your purpose here and what is your destination. Because once you truly figure out these answers and believe it with your soul, you should have no reason to be depressed, worried, and sulk over your losses. Because Allah is there every single time you call to Him. Every single time. So what is there to be sad about? So in this life, you can be tested with either poverty or wealth. And none can be sad as worse than the other. For each one comes with its own trials and tribulations. The one in poverty should call to Allah. Should call to Allah and be closer to Him, so that he may be content with himself and strive to be better in this dunya. And the one with wealth is expected to repeatedly thank Allah for what he has been given and show his thankfulness by sadaqah in charity, helping those in need. Now the ones with wealth often make a very common mistake, and they forget where their wealth came from. Who gave them the wealth? Where did their fame come from? And then they start to live with arrogance and ignorance. And what happens to those people? وَمَن يَعْشَ عَن ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. And whoever is blinded from remembrance of the Most Merciful, we appoint for him a devil, and he is to him a companion. And now this companion is like no other companion. You will not see him, you will not be able to touch him, he will be there for you mentally. And he will avert your actions into thinking you are rightly guided. وَإِنَّهُمْ يَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ يُهْتَدُونَ. And indeed, the devils avert them away from the way of guidance, while they think they are rightly guided. حتى إذا جاءنا قال يا ليت بيني وبينك بعد المشرقين فبئس القرين. And he will say on the day of judgment, oh, I wish there was between me and you the distance between the east and the west, because how wretched a companion. And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever's concern is for dunya, is for the worldly existence and its possessions, Allah will inflict him with disunity and make poverty between his eyes. And he will still not have from dunya except for what Allah has decreed for him in the beginning. And for the one whose concern is a hereafter, Allah will grant him reunification and make his richness within his heart, and dunya will come to him unwillingly. So why don't we make akhirah our main concern? The Prophet ﷺ has also said, he has tasted the flavor of faith, which is being happy with Allah as his Lord, Islam as his religion, and Muhammad as his messenger. And you know the horrible truth is that some of us don't complain our religion, Islam, as much as we should. We're quiet about the injustice that happens in the world because we are afraid of legal consequences. We're always afraid if the government is listening through our phones, through our texts. So we're always watching what we say over the media. We're afraid to request time off from our bosses, our managers, for Muslim holidays. We're afraid to tell them that we can't really work on Friday sermons because of Friday sermons. Islam is a huge part of yourself, and one can't say it is almost half. Maybe it is half. And so if you neglect half of yourself, how can you wonder why you aren't content with yourself? Because you are, in other words, neglecting yourself, and then we wonder why this life doesn't treat us fairly. Have you felt the flavor of Allah? Have you tested it? Have you tasted it? So for a start, taste the flavor of Allah. Taste the flavor of faith. Be happy with Allah as your Lord. Lord meaning the planner, the giver, the one who takes and the one who gives. The one who possesses fame, wealth, and everything you could ever ask for. And so for treating the stress and the reasons for your depression, I summed it in 3 main points. And the first one is deep faith. And deep faith is that knowing that Allah has everything within His grasp. Nothing happens in this universe except without His power, His permission, His will, and ability. What hit you was not to miss you, and what missed you was not to hit you. All is by Allah's will. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Indeed, all things we created with predestination. So nothing will happen without His will. So your deep faith is accepting that what happens to you is from Allah and to love Him no matter what. And the number 2 is tight connection. And connection with your Lord isn't just prayer. It's attributing Him to every aspect in your life. Remembering Him, doing actions for His sake, reading the Quran with translation that would fit your comprehension, spreading knowledge about the Almighty, and loving Him with everything you have. And number 3, the accurate understanding. And this one ties back to deep faith. Understanding your Lord, understanding your problems, connecting your solutions with Allah, and always including Him in your plans. Because He already has made a beautiful one for you. Understanding your faith, understanding your troubles, understanding that the good will always outweigh the bad. Unfortunately though, faith alone will not get you anywhere. Just because you believe in Allah's plan for you doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything that would help yourself. Because Allah only helps those who attempt to help themselves. He only guides those who seek guidance themselves. Effort is always required for a happy ending. And that is a common misconception. And I might be thinking, isn't what Allah destined for me going to happen regardless of what I do in this world? Regardless of my efforts? Whether I am good, whether I am bad? Which it brings us back to the beginning. It's your contents and your faith. If you are not content with your Lord, your purpose, your being, even if Allah gave you the world's best treasures, you will still not be happy with yourself. You'll continue seeking more. You'll want more power, you'll want more fame, you'll want more wealth. And this towards a tyrant and an oppressor. Now if you are paying attention, all these main points are live and are tied to one another, like a web. If you complete one, the other should be completed, should be done like a breeze. You should be able to understand the other ones like a breeze. And if you forget one, your faith would be almost considered incomplete. Right? So what are we brought into this world for? Look back into your life. Think of all the challenges you faced and all the emotions you've experienced. Think back to the moments where you thought, I can't do this. Where you had no hope and you saw no solution. Maybe it was trying to get through your exams. Maybe you had financial difficulties. Maybe you couldn't find a new job. Maybe you had relationship problems. Right? A sister shares an experience about relying upon Allah and says, while I was still an undergraduate, I had a dream about working for a multi-millionaire multinational company. And if you were to ask me 2 years ago about my dream, I would have told you it's impossible. But because I trusted Allah, because I put my faith completely in Allah, I'm working for one of the biggest companies in the world. And fast forward a couple of years, and they're successful. And this is only because of their trust they put into Allah, while still putting in the hard work. You still have to put in the hard work and still have trust. It's a two-way thing. Therefore, it is important to, as while you are working completely hard for your ambitions and goals, it is crucial to remember your Lord in every hardship and success. I think of one very important concept of life, which goes by tawakkul. A mindset where you accept everything that comes through your way, the storms, the hurdles, the twisted and confusing pathways. You accept it because you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to guide you through it. He's going to guide you because His plan supersedes all others. It supersedes yours, whatever plan you might have for yourself. He knows better, and He will only give you what is best for you. And it is to know that He is only trying to strengthen your character. He's only making these hardships as trials and tribulations so you can develop a better character. And that He is continuously giving you opportunities so that you may earn your spots in Jannah. So it is important to let go of the steering wheel of your life, and have full trust of Allah. Have full trust that Allah will take you to the right way, to the right path. قولي قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم إنه هو الغفور. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. When I think about applying the concept of tawakkul in my life, I commonly refer back to the story of the Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, and his mother. She was ordered by Allah to cast her son into the river. And the story is the firm belief and reliance she had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she was not aware what was going to happen. Actually, she had an idea of what was going to happen to her child. This was during a time where Fir'aun would slaughter the male children to save his power. Right? And nevertheless, she placed her beloved son into the basket and watched as he floated out of her control and out of her sight. And I reflect upon just how beautiful the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were at this moment when He said, وَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. He said, وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. Do not fear and do not grieve. She was told to place her male-born child, who would be almost slaughtered, if it wasn't for Allah, would be slaughtered by Fir'aun, onto a river in a basket, and watch as he flows away. And to not fear and to not grieve. She wasn't even supposed to be sad about the event. And it's these very comforting words that every time I face a calamity, in the end, I know that as Allah returned Musa to his mother, He will return to us what is rightfully ours. And this we also learn that in order to gain, we must also learn to lose. We must also learn to let go. It is okay to let go. It is okay to trust that Allah has a better plan for us, and even though that the plan you might see in front of you doesn't look very easy, doesn't look like the best ideal option, Allah knows best, and it is in your best interest to trust Him with your path and your plans. And then when Musa and his brother were sent to remind Fir'aun about Allah, they exclaimed that they were scared. And scared of what? They were scared of His consequences. What did Allah tell him? What did Allah tell them? قَالَا رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا نَخَافُ أَن يَفْرَطَ عَلَيْنَا أَوْ أَن يَطْغَى قال لا تخافا إنني معكما أسمع وأرى. They said, Our Lord, indeed we are afraid that He will hasten punishment against us, or that He may transgress against us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Fear not, indeed I am with you both. I hear and I see. And then there's the other story of Musa himself, the heart-crushing moments where they were just behind the Red Sea. And they stood in front of the Red Sea with the Israelis. And while the army of Fir'aun was charging behind them, and the Israelis had no hope, and have been recorded in the Quran as saying, indeed we are to be overtaken. Over Musa, alayhi salam, he displayed true tawakkul in Allah and understood that in this very moment he will without a doubt help his slave, and thus the sea split in half with Allah's permission. Now let me talk about us for a moment. The problem with you and I is that when we face a calamity, when our plans fall apart, and we see no light at the end of the tunnel, we lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We stress, we cry out, and we fall to our knees because we believe that there is simply no way out. We lose patience, and somehow, incredibly, we lose patience and forget that Allah is capable of all things, even if our minds cannot comprehend this. But it isn't bad to complain. It isn't bad to fall on your knees. It's completely normal to fall down, to back down, to feel completely worthless in our worst times. Even Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam grieved when his sons were taken from him. And he was tested twice by Allah. The first time was when his sons went to take little Yusuf out to play, and they came back with a stained shirt of fake blood, telling their father that he was eaten by a wolf. وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ. He said, rather, your souls have enticed you to something. And then what did he say after? وَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. He said, so patience is most fitting. اللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَىٰ مَا تَصِفُونَ. And Allah is the one who sought for help against that which you described. Even during the most challenging moments of his life, he remembered his Lord. He placed his patience and trust in Allah. He didn't make any rash decisions. And then later the time where they convinced the other son, where they convinced their father to take his other son, Benjamin, with them to the city so that they can take better rations. The same city that Yusuf governed without their knowledge. And Yusuf plotted with his Lord so that Benjamin would stay behind, proving as another test for his father. But his brothers left when they figured out of this plot. They left except for one of them to tell their father that their brother was a thief and he couldn't come back. And the father, he wouldn't believe them. Because the first time they took Yusuf and now they took Benjamin. And they were like, وَاسْأَلِ الْقَرْيَةِ الَّتِي كُنَّا فِيهَا وَالْعِيرَ الَّتِي أَقْبَلْنَا فِيهَا وَإِنَّا لَصَادِقُونَ. He said, ask the caravan. Ask the people we arrived with. We are telling the truth. But the father, he's gone through so much. He's gone through so much, but still, what did he say? He said the same thing. وَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ عَسَى اللَّهُ أَن يَأْتِيَنِي بِهِمْ جَمِيعًا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. He said the same thing. Patience is beautiful. Then he placed his trust in Allah, that Allah will return both of them to him. But he's still grieved, because he is still human. Although he is a messenger, he is still human. وَبِيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. His eyes became white of grief. He became blind from grief. And his sons, قالوا تالله تفتأ تذكر يوسف حتى تكون حرضا أو تكون من الهالكين. And they said, by Allah, he will not cease ill. He will not cease remembering Yusuf until he become fatally ill or become one of those who perish. And what did he say after this? This is a second test of him by Allah. And what did he say still? He lost 2 of his sons who have no mother. And he said, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. He said, I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah, and I know from Allah that which you do not know. How does he know from Allah which they do not know? Because he had his share of experiences. He had his share of trials and tribulations. His fair trials and tribulations that he only got through because he trusted in Allah. When he was sent to his people, he trusted in Allah. When Yusuf was taken away from him, he trusted in Allah. When his wife died, he trusted in Allah. And so when Benjamin is taken away from him, he will trust in Allah. So didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide a way for every single prophet that came? Did he not provide for the people that came before you? Is he not providing for the people around you? If he provides even for the birds that soar through our skies, or the insects buried deep underground, what makes you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do the same for you? He created you. He knows your every need, takes care of your every necessity, and is closer to you than your own vein. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala split the sea for Musa alayhi salam, so too can he split the oceans of troubles that are in your life, the oceans of hopelessness that lie in front of you in life. And if there's one thing that I'd like you to reflect upon, it's one beautiful statement that continues to resonate in my heart from none other than Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. And he says, my heart is at ease knowing that what was meant for me will never miss me, and what misses me was never meant for me. Most of us, maybe some of us, are not Arabic speakers. We therefore have to make a special effort to understand the holy text, to understand the Arabic terms used in the sacred text. Words are sometimes so inadequate, right? The word for mankind, for humankind in Arabic is insan, and insan means to forget. Iman, and it's always possible that something gets lost in translation, right? So insan means to forget. And so we are forgetful people, and it's normal for us because that's how we were created. And that's why Allah encourages remembrance, constant remembrance of dhikr. Because we have iman, faith, and we put our trust in Allah before anyone and anything. The Holy Quran reminds us that وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ حَسِيبًا. Allah is a witness, and enough is Allah as a witness, and enough is Allah as a guardian, and enough is Allah as a protector. The Quran constantly urges us believers to put our trust in Allah, but we are forgetful. Remember that Allah has always decreed our rizq, our provision. Whatever we do, we cannot increase our provision. The only choice we have is this. How do we earn our provision? Do we earn it through Allah's blessings, or do we earn it through His anger? And that's a crucial choice we have to make every single day. Do we earn our rizq the halal way or the haram way? Right? The actual amount of how much rizq we will have at the end of the day has been fixated by Allah already, and that cannot change. But we can either earn it through Allah's anger, or we can earn it through Allah's good pleasure. All the lying, cheating, the bad business, right? This will only earn us Allah's displeasure. And we will not be happy with ourselves. We will not be content with ourselves with Allah's displeasure. وَمَنْ يَتَقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ And whoever is cautiously aware of his duty to Allah, Allah always prepares a way out for him from his difficulty. And He provides for him sources he could never imagine. And if anyone puts their trust in Allah, then sufficient is Allah for him. So it is important to remember our true purpose here. It is important to be aware of the limited power we have. I was hoping to cover our purpose and destination in this khutbah, but inshallah the next one. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب دعوات. اللهم استرنا فوق الأرض واسترنا تحت الأرض واسترنا يوم العرض يا رحمن. اللهم طهر قلوبنا من النفاق وأعمالنا من الرياء وألسنتنا من الكذب وأعيننا من الخيانة إنك تعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور. اللهم اجعلنا من أهل القرآن الذين هم أهلك وخاصتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. أقم الصلاة.